What is going on, everybody? What a late night evening here in the Bears chat. As you and me, Jacob, it's us talking to all the Bears fans out there that just watched the same game we did. And oh, what a game it was, Jacob. How you feeling just before we technically start the show?
I'm feeling just beat. I feel like I've been punched in the gut 1,000 times, and I feel like I don't know. I'm running out of metaphors. It wasn't a great game, and I don't want to be the guy that, one bad game, season's over, there's nothing to look forward to anymore. But this was a tough game to watch, Robert.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a hard one. I mean, I'm going to try to find the nicest way that I can say it on the podcast. I mean, it's hard to, right? I mean, the worst part about this game, Jacob, is that we can't say, "Hey, the Packers are a good defense. Wow, they're really, really talented." Like, gee, you could see the flashes. You could see an offense trying to figure themselves out. But, oh boy, maybe next time, once they add some talented pass catchers. But the worst part about this game, honestly, like, Jacob, it's not Kyler Gordon struggling. It's not Jaquan Brisker having more rookie moments. It's not the interior defensive line struggling to stop the run against a very good running team. If you ask me, the worst part about this game was seeing a game plan so hell-bent on running the football that they more than doubled their passing attempts with rushing attempts. And there's a point where it's not a wet field anymore, right? Like, this is deliberate. And if it's deliberate, what are the coaches saying without saying it? That is something to be worried about, right?
No, 100% agree. I feel I mean, it's like you mentioned, it's a dry field, dry conditions, playing in a monsoon like you were last game. I mean, there are so many conditions that were affecting the Bears in week one that didn't affect them in week two. And if anything, they were even more conservative, even more run heavy than they were in week one. And I don't get it. I mean, sure, they ran the ball well. David Montgomery had an awesome game. Khalil Herbert did pretty well too. But throwing the ball 11 times in a modern NFL offense is just unacceptable. And that's something that needs to change. I don't know what kind of message they're sending by doing that, but I feel super confident in the game plan, just taking a look what kind of approach they've taken on offense.
Right. I mean, we'll obviously have to see what happens in Houston. This is one of those games where, like, I can't make this clear enough. I'm going to say this when we record the podcast. One horrible game does not make me out on Justin Fields. We are not just jumping ship. I don't think you're jumping ship, Jacob. I'm not jumping ship. But this is a data point that you have to look square in the eyes and say, holy moly, they didn't let him throw. He didn't eclipse 100 yards. He was more of a glorified runner, and then when they gave him the ball on an admittedly poor play call on, never mind. I could say that Fields isn't a power runner, but honestly, that's pushing the envelope too far. And if I was a Bears fan, I really wouldn't be in the mood to accept that kind of guff either. So we can leave that one at the door. But it's such a weird football game to talk about because if you ask me and you say, man, the Bears offense was competitive, but the Packers offense was better. I say, I guess I'm not that surprised. I've seen this movie before, right? But it is hard for me to go from shredding Trubisky for years and not give Fields the negative part of his due on a game like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think you summed it up perfectly. And truthfully, Fields didn't look great today. He's had some games where can have an amazing stat line, but look at some of these plays that he's making. He looks special in, say 2 or 3 plays. We didn't really see that today. He just kind of looked like another guy out there. Sure, he was fast, obviously, and he's a better running quarterback in this game even than the average NFL starting quarterback. But as a passer, I didn't really see much, if anything, that made me think, okay, this guy's a franchise quarterback. And that's not at all to say he's not going to be the guy going forward. And I I mean, I'm literally wearing his jersey as we speak right now. I wouldn't do that if I wasn't confident that he could. I wouldn't have bought this, uh, whatever bootleg store I got of. But, uh, but no, I think that this wasn't a great game for Fields. And again, going back to again, the decision to go so run heavy is a lack of faith from the Bears staff and Fields. I don't want to be that guy that's saying, "Oh, throw it out the window, project's over," because it's not. Fields has plenty of time to continue to develop and continue to improve. But this wasn't one of those games where I can come away super confident saying, "Yep, this is the guy, 100%."
So somebody in the chat, Carlos V, you asked a very important question, and I want to give you the answer you deserve. You asked, how do you assess someone on 11 attempts? You can't, not really. Like, I want to be clear, you really can't. But normally, a passer that gives the offense more confidence gets more attempts. The last time, to use an example, can you really assess Mike Glennon? I mean, the answer is yes to this. On the probably 13 passing attempts that he got in the Giants game last year against the Bears in roughly, I think it was week 15. Well, maybe you could say no. Maybe you could say Glennon was never put in a good situation. Maybe you could say Glennon never got the ball and an opportunity to really succeed behind that, like, Giants offensive line. But once he threw an interception or two and fumbled, and the offense just became running the ball until we lost, or not we, in that case it was the Giants lost. Doesn't that tell you something about what the coaching staff thinks about them? That's the hard part here. It's not, wow, this staff hates Fields, and it's very obvious. It's more that I am stunned that if that's what Luke Getsy decided was the Bears' best shot at beating the Packers, apparently they decided that Justin Fields' arm was just not going to be a part of the game plan. I mean, he took one shot downfield to Darnell Mooney in one-on-one coverage, and they got the one-on-one coverage that, they got the one-on-one that they wanted with Mooney. And Fields, look, he overthrew the ball. It was a tough throw. Like, there are other options for it. I'm not trying to be any more or less than as real as I can be. The Bears just didn't take many shots. They didn't intend on taking many shots. And if they could, they were going to hand the ball off on every single down, except for the one where they threw a flea flicker, which I'm pretty sure, Jacob, is the first time I've seen them not run the ball on second down. But a flea flicker kind of counts, because that is as close to a run as you can be while still making it a pass. I don't know. It is tough. And you're probably right at Kusai that I'm sure that there was some degree of like overthrowing Mooney on purpose, maybe. And Sammy Bull, maybe they weren't taking shots because they didn't trust the pass pro. But Jacob, if you're where I'm at, it's just hard to take a look at a real NFL football game. Like, Fields has had these before, these sub-100-yard games where we've said, okay, he's a rookie and he's playing in Matt Nagy's scheme. But past a certain point, he's a second-year quarterback in a brand-new offense, and that brand-new offense has back-to-back games with over 60% run rates and literally running on every single second down sans a single flea flicker. So what's going on here becomes the question. Like, are the coaches telling us something without telling us something? That's all I want to know. Right, Jacob?
Absolutely. I do not like the approach being so run heavy on second and 10, second and long, whatever the case may be. More often than not, I want to pass in those situations. I want to see some passes on first down, to be completely honest too. But second down, I think we've seen more often than not that this Bears offense in the last 2 weeks has really preferred to defer to the run, which I guess can be perceived as maybe the Bears don't trust Fields. I don't want to be that guy. I really want the Bears to trust Fields. I think that he deserves that much, that they should at least give him a chance. So maybe it's just poor decision making Getsy's part, but it's really a puzzling strategy. And more often than not, it hasn't worked for them. It sets Fields up more often than not in a third and long situation where maybe Montgomery or Herbert gain like 2 or 3 yards max. And, sans that one run that Montgomery had for like 2 yards earlier today, like that really hasn't been a full endeavor for Chicago's offense. And I could come out here and give a concrete answer as to doing that, but all I can do at this point is speculate. And to me, it's either one of two things. Either Luke Getsy genuinely thinks that's a good idea, which I strongly disagree with, or the Bears don't really trust Justin Fields yet, which is a bit alarming. So either way, I'm not a fan of that approach. What the reason might be, I don't know. But again, I'm just not a big fan of that whole ordeal in general.
And hey, it's possible, Jacob. Just we'll start the show here in a little bit. And for everybody talking about Jacob stuttering, we've done what we can to minimize the issue. And if it comes through, I sincerely apologize. It's just sort of the skin of it right now. That's what we get, Jacob, for college Wi-Fi, right? Gotta love it. Like, thanks, Mizzou. You are still at Mizzou, right? Like, you didn't graduate?
No, yeah, I'm in my senior year right now. My apartment's public Wi-Fi. So I tried a hotspot, guys, and it probably did worse than this. So unfortunately, I've had some bad luck on podcast appearances and doing stuff over the computer and it pisses me off. But hey, whatever, go with the flow. We're gonna do what we can, and I appreciate Robert for sticking with me here and bearing with me, I guess.
Hey, that's the theme of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure you record that voice memo so that you can send that over to me, and then I'll make sure the audio is as good as it can be on the other side. So before we get into it, I will say one thing. So I think it's let me see, Cole World mentioned maybe it's not that they don't trust Fields, but that they don't trust any of the receivers of the offensive line. You could totally be right. Like, when I can't make this clear enough, me and Jacob don't know. We just know that apparently they trust the offensive line to run the snot out of the ball. Either that or they are almost throwing games on purpose. Like, if they don't trust the receivers and they don't trust the line to throw the ball, but they do trust them to run 28 times, that's like as close as you get to pressing sim season on offense, because it's not a particularly strong winning game plan. And so I don't know the answer. I don't know if any of us know the answer. We'll watch the All-22. We may still not have an answer, or maybe we will. I know Adam Johns tweeted out that on one of those sacks, the apparently Equinemius St. Brown was touchdown wide open. That's the quote from Johnsy. So we'll have to see on the All-22 whether he saw something correct or whether that's a decoy route that was just never part of the progression. I don't know. Jacob, you don't know. The chat, you guys probably don't know. And none of us do. But Trubisky got more. I'll tell you this, Jacob. This is probably the most vicious thing I can say. Week 1, 2019, Trubisky got every chance possible to throw his way to a win. And on this game, Justin Fields didn't even seem like he got that opportunity. And it just leaves me wondering why, especially when the last throw of his game was an interception. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to be honest, when I was watching the game, once the interception happened, I just turned it off, and I didn't watch the rest of those, the 2 minutes or whatever of the Packers just running the ball and then kneeling it, because I'm like, okay, I can't take any more. I don't care what happens. I don't care if the Bears get a turnover. I don't care if anything happens at all. I'm done. So, and again, when I'm saying these critiques about Justin Fields, I don't want to be this guy saying that he's a bust. I don't want to be the guy saying he can't be the franchise quarterback. But as we'll talk about, even more, and we've already talked about the play calling was concerning for a number of reasons, and whatever the main reason is, it's not great. That's all I know. That's all we know at this point. We know is that things aren't great for one. There, it's just a matter of what the issue is. But yeah, I think this was one of those games where he was in Fields and you didn't really see any special. Like, he's had those games 100% where he's displayed some really special talents. This wasn't one of those games.
No, it was not. And with that, since it's Sunday night and it's 11 p.m. Central Time, let's get a podcast recorded. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm getting my voice memo up right now.
Perfect. Let me know when you're ready to go.
3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, All right, let's rock.
Perfect. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Me, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, right here on the Windy City Gridiron podcasting channel. And Jacob, we're coming to you live. I'm here with Jacob Infante, and we are coming to you guys live after a real bummer of a Bears game against the Packers. As Jacob, I don't know about you, I feel like I've seen this movie before on offense where the Bears had a sweet scripted drive that got every Bears fan excited and failed to really muster up anything particularly special after that. Between 3 and outs, interception at the end of the game, strugglesome play calls, weird play calls at the goal line, certainly, and maybe a bad call. It was not a banner day for the Bears offense. Really wasn't a banner day for the Bears defense either. Not a great day to be a Bears fan as the Packers inch a little bit closer to that all-time franchise wins record. But Jacob, that's how I feel. How do you feel?
Robert, I honestly feel the same way that you do. I don't feel great after that game. That's kind of become a trend whenever I see the Bears play the Packers, and I hate it. I'm going to be honest, I hate it. And I hate that this has become the standard for being a Bears fan, that every time they're going to schedule a primetime game because it's Bears-Packers, two of the most historic franchise in NFL history, maybe the biggest rivalry in NFL history, and this just keeps happening every single time where they're absolutely demolished in prime time and nothing good comes out of it. And I don't season. There's still plenty of football left to be not hitting the panic button yet. But this wasn't a great game for a number of reasons we'll dig into. But I am just, man, it tires me watching that kind of stuff, you know?
Oh yes. I mean, the worst part about that kind of game is that you find yourself wondering what on earth needs to change for things to get better, because it's the worst part about, to me at least, watching that kind of offense is the Bears ran the ball technically at 7.4 or 6.4 yards per clip. Actually, it's 6.7 yards per clip. David Montgomery played like a superhero. Khalil Herbert cracked off a really long run that juiced his average. Obviously, that's not quite the story of it. The Bears had a bunch of long runs and a bunch of not so long runs, to say the least. But with Justin Fields clocking in at 11 passing attempts, 7 for 11, 70 yards, and 3 sacks to go with it, there's not a ton to get particularly excited about when it comes to the development of the young quarterback. And hey, you said it really well, Jacob. This doesn't mean we're out. Like, I don't want to make it sound like anybody's rushing to conclusions here. Nobody's breaking out the B word that will not be mentioned. But this is a rough data point. I mean, obviously, us Bears fans might care more about the Bears-Packers rivalry than even the players and coaches do, but we do care. And this is a game that you just can't have. I mean, the Bears seemed intent to run the ball on any down where it was justifiable. I mean, they almost literally ran all the way down the field, and on 2nd and 20 even decided to run it. David Montgomery just had other plans. I mean, this is a strange game plan. And under the assumption that the Bears were doing everything they could on offense to improve their chances to win this football game, you have to wonder whether what they've been saying about Justin Fields lines up with what they actually think. Look, far be it from me to question the kid. God knows he's got not much to work with when it comes to his receiver room. Certainly Cole Kmet had a ball that hit him right in the chest that fell to the ground and set up another strugglesome series. We've heard that story before, but it's weird walking away from a game where the quarterback was asked to do so very little, because after years of watching Nagy seemingly try to minimize Trubisky's impact on the game for the negative and criticizing Trubisky for it, it would be deeply unfair for me not to point out that it felt like Justin Fields got put into the same position, and I just struggle to see how that bodes well for the future of the franchise. But it's just one game. What do you think?
Yeah, so actually it's really good timing that you bring that up, because this just popped up on my timeline from the after-game press conference. So this is from Chris Emma, who just popped up on my timeline from 670 The Score. So Justin Fields about the throwing 11 passes said, quote, "Luke said before the game, Luke Getsy, that we were going to run it down their throats. My job is to run the play that's given to me the best that I can. So I don't think that really offers too much of analysis outside can't see in the box score because yeah, they ran the ball 27 times and Justin Fields threw passes, and even when you include the 3 times he was sacked, it's still 14. You know, so
Yep.
it's not a great ratio when you look at pass to run, especially in today's modern NFL. And we can only really speculate what the reason is. But I'm honestly baffled about taking such a run heavy approach. Yes, David Montgomery had a fantastic game, and I don't want to take anything away from him. I think he was the MVP of this game for the Bears, 100%. But with that in mind, don't you want to see what you have in your quarterback? If you're trailing for most of the game, wouldn't you want to try and air it out a little bit? We just didn't see it.
I mean, the worst part is, Jacob, maybe they feel like they did. Obviously, we can't be in the huddle, but the 3 sacks that Fields took were in the first half of the game. I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, certainly 2 of them were. And it makes you wonder what was going to happen on those plays where Fields took a sack. All we get is the broadcast angle. And I've complained before when we are on podcasts like this, that I would just kill for some kind of hybrid all 22 view, because when us fans are left staring at our quarterback standing behind an offensive line getting sacked and asking, was anybody open? Like, what are we really watching when it comes to a football perspective? Why do we have to wait until Tuesday or Monday night just to confirm whether or not our quarterback actually had options downfield or not, let alone understand what the rest of the play calls are? I will never understand it, and it makes moments like this even worse. But that said, it's just a weird game to evaluate, because even if that was the plan, to ram it down their throats, it's hard to look at any statistic, whether you go throw by throw on Fields, whether you go volumetric and you say you got to have more than 70 passing yards in the modern NFL. Yeah, I don't disagree. So outside of a couple things, I'll tip my hat to the Bears offensive line. They must have blocked like crazy, because between them and the tight ends, they broke loose a bunch of very, very solid runs that are without a doubt positive things going into the future. But I'll tell you what, Jacob, this is the moment. Okay, so last week we got the everything's coming up Bears game, right? We got the, oh, heck yeah, our rookies played well, and our coach rules, and we grinded it out, and the defense is awesome, and Luke Getsy's awesome, and Justin Fields made plays when Justin Fields needed to make plays. And this one was the one where the Bears looked like a 3-14 team. Like, this looked like a game that was over at halftime. The Packers offense came out and sleptwalk until they needed to score more points, and then immediately launched like a 50 some odd yard bomb to Sammy Watkins, who was wide open. I mean, this did not look like trouble for a team that was made to look like lunch meat last week by another divisional opponent of ours. So I don't know. I don't know who these Bears are. I think I would love to say they are who we thought they were, but this was the game for the naysayers, and last week was the game for the positive people, and next week against Houston, I don't know which team we're going to see.
Yeah, truthfully, I'm really interested in seeing which Bears team shows up in Houston, because hypothetically, Houston's not a great team. That should be a game that they're able to win, especially if, say they play about the same level of play that they had against San Francisco. I mean, they're not going to be playing in a monsoon, but say they play around the same. I don't think Houston can consistently outplay that. I don't think they have enough on their roster. I think Chicago had a roster than Houston does. And with that said, I can't go into that week and say, all right, they're definitely going to win this game. They're moving on to 2-1. Let's see what the rest of the year brings. I think that it's a game they're going to have to really fight for. And sure, the Texans haven't been great, but I don't think they've been the forming team in the league. A lot of people expected them to be the worst team in the league, or top 3 at the very least. But I think they've shown some guts, and even if they're not a great NFL team, let's be honest, but they're going to fight. And I think that the Bears are going to have to come back and fight right back. So I don't feel great about this game. I didn't feel great about this season to begin with. I'll be honest. I saw this team as probably somewhere between 5 and 7 wins. Just realistically, I thought that any talk of a playoff run was it's a delusional, I guess. I don't want to be too harsh with that, but that's just what I believe. That's just what I believe this whole time. And I really hope I'm proven wrong. I really hope I'm proven wrong and that they turns around and that they truly have a breakout year. But this is a work in progress. This isn't a year dedicated to competing right away. Just dead cap they're eating. Just look at how little on big name contracts. This is a tooling year. I don't want to say rebuilding early, but retooling I think is the biggest year. They're not intending to be Super Bowl contenders this year. So that's just something to keep in mind. To not totally overreact if this team isn't great, because on paper they're not.
No, and I mean, I'm proud of you for not wanting to say rebuilding. I'll say rebuilding, Jacob. I have never seen a defensive player with quite as complicated a role as Kyler Gordon has right now. And that's not even particularly an excuse for number 6, as both number 6 and number 9 showed some real issues tonight that are going to be a little more easy to explain when it comes to when the all-22 comes out, but missed tackles, poor man matchups, poor play in general. The rookies got victimized well more than once. But even in that, Jacob, let's take Kyler Gordon. Right now, he's playing outside corner in the base defense on first downs where they think a run is coming. And then when they switch to nickel, Kendall Vildor comes on the field and he bumps inside, which is ridiculous because normally you learn one or the other. In the nickel, or when you're playing in the nickel, you don't have the sideline to work with. You've got to play the position differently and understand your assignments differently than when you're on the outside. And like we saw with Gordon's beautiful pass breakup on the outside earlier in I think it was the second quarter, you can use the sideline to your advantage because you know that the receiver can't go out of bounds. So watching what Gordon is going through right now, I can't imagine how difficult that is. And I cannot willingly say that this team putting Gordon in that position is trying to compete, so to speak. It looks like the Bears are trying to develop. But even so, I mean, I know that last week gave us a lot of hope because San Francisco is such a phenomenal running football team, but the Packers ran the snot out of the ball. It felt like they got fundamentally whatever they wanted to on the ground, which is, never super fun. And I'm looking up the statistics on it right now. It looks like the Bears gave up. Oh, man. I don't know why I can't. There it is. Okay. It looks like the Bears gave up 5.3 yards per carry on the ground, 203 yards total, and a score on 38 carries. So if anybody got the ball run down their throats, it might have been Chicago.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's fitting you bring that up because I was getting a head start on my day after notes for Windy City Gridiron before we hopped on this call, and I did the math on the yards per carry. If you exclude Aaron Rodgers' rushes that he had, which technically not all are rushes, he had however many kneels. Don't know because I turned the game off after the Justin Fields interception, but that increases to 5.8 yards per carry just off of the two running back Jones and AJ Dillon alone. And I'm gonna say that, Robert, you've said this before, but we're gonna have to go back to the all 2022 and see exactly what went wrong. But on first glance, the tackling was just bad, man. I think that that's something that we didn't see much of in week 1, those struggles where the inability to wrap up, the inability to get your weight underneath you and truly form tackle. I think that they were just all over the place. And to bring up Kyler Gordon, I thought that when he was on the outside, he wasn't bad, in all honesty. I think it's when he was in the slot that he really struggled, and Green Bay knew that. They just took advantage of him. And sure, I think looked a split second too late to diagnose route depths, and he wasn't like Kyler Gordon athlete. He's not a 4.43 athlete to the point where he can make up for a split second too late diagnosis. He's more fluid than he is fast. So the instinct sharper. I again want to hate on the guy too much because it's saying a very difficult to learn. Like you mentioned, you're switching outside, you're moving around so much. It's just his second game in the NFL, but this wasn't a good game. This was not a good game of NFL football, a good game of coverage at the cornerback position. And I have faith in Kyler Gordon. I think that he's a good football player and that the tools are there for him to succeed going forward. So again, not abandoning hope, especially for a rookie in his literally second game. But I think that Kyler's struggles definitely played a part in just was overall not a good game for that Bears defense.
The nickel corner is absurdly hard, and it's not talked about enough. I mean, Bears fans threw Buster Skrine out, and I'm not by any means about to cape for Buster Skrine, but we act like somehow because outside corner gets paid as well as it does, and that Darrelle Revis plays outside corner, and all the big names that play outside corner, that outside corner is one of the hardest positions on the football field. And ever since we got Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and at the time for the Bears it was Allen Robinson and Devontae Adams and others all playing out of the slot, Jacob, slot became the hardest position on the football field, bar none, offense or defense. Honestly, there's an argument to be made that slot corner is harder than quarterback in some cases, especially in some offenses, because you've just got to cover superstars and they can go literally anywhere. I'm stunned that with Gordon having as little work as he had or as he got, that he's been put in this position. Look, far be it from me to criticize Eberflus in his second game for saying, oh, he didn't put Kyler Gordon in position to succeed. But when Aaron Rodgers goes 19 for 25 for 234, that's an average of 9.4 yards per attempt. Actually, that may be yards per completion, but he's got an 131 quarterback rating, and most of that felt like it was fed through number 6. It's not awesome for your rookie, and certainly it's going to be something that Kyler's going to have to just pick his head up. Now, Jacob, this wasn't a football game devoid of bright spots, which I'm almost surprised I'm saying, but number 99, Trevis Gibson, had himself a day. That's awfully nice to see out of a pass rusher. And certainly I think the Bears' offensive line brought a lot to the table that in the world of it's a development year, what positives can we take from this? Trevis Gibson's a young, productive pass rusher lining up with Dominique Robinson. Robert Quinn looked as fast as ever. So if the Bears did want to truly mortgage the now for the future, Robert Quinn's helping set himself up for a deadline deal. But outside of, also, I thought Eddie Jackson played relatively well. He was hitting and tackling as well as I've seen him just about, and was as holding the defense together as well as he could, I guess, from the back end. I don't want to tip my cap too hard in that direction for a defensive performance that was generally pretty uninspiring. But I also, now that we're talking about players that played well and played poorly, I'll ask you a hard one, Jacob. What'd you think about Roquan Smith?
Oh boy, so this wasn't Roquan's best game. And you look at the stat sheet, you see, had 11 tackles. That's a good number. That's a good number. And no context added to that. It looks like he had a very good game, even better than he had in week 1. But the Packers offensive line just had their way with him. And that's never been a strength of Roquan's game in terms of shedding blocks and being that physical thumper in between the box. I mean, he's a smaller linebacker. He's a sideline to sideline guy. But I think the Packers did a very good job of just overwhelming him at the point of attack. And Roquan got pushed back a lot. And there were some instances where he looked maybe a little hesitant at times. That's not necessarily the case for him usually, because he's such a player and he's an intelligent player more often than not. It's just that this game, Packers knew how to neutralize him, and they did exactly that. I don't think that was their intention to solely neutralize Roquan. You don't game plan entirely around a line usually, but I think then they had to keep in mind that Roquan's never great at shedding blocks when offensive linemen get to the second level. And I think we saw it. And it wasn't just that. There were a couple instances where Roquan was getting blown off the ball by running backs or tight ends. So that was just tough to watch, especially for a guy who's entering, he's in a contract year. He's got this big extension or free agent signing, whatever happens, pending. And I don't think he did a very good job of solidifying his case. I remember, we talked a little bit about this last week with, the 49ers, but comparing Roquan to Fred Warner is miles ahead of Roquan. And I think Roquan's a very good footballer, but he's not special to the Fred Warner is, where you can justify by making him the best paid linebacker in the league. I don't think Roquan's at that level, and I think that just more games like this is just really going to hurt his stock as a free agent going forward. There's a whole nother discussion contract thing, the agent, but just for today, I don't think he had a very good outing, and that's disappointing for a guy who's supposed to be the best player on the team.
Right. I agree with you. And frankly, I think that it's a continuing trend now because we saw the same with San Francisco. And as much as, again, I will point to both San Fran and Green Bay and say, wow, Jacob, these are teams steeped in the run game. If any team out there is going to understand how to run the ball on you, it's going to be San Francisco, and then it's probably going to be Green Bay. So the fact that A.J. Dillon can throw a pretty nasty block, the fact that any San Francisco tight end can just run on out and block 58 without too much trouble, maybe they're just good at it, right? Where I struggle is, okay, so I'll use an example. One of the things that made Ray Lewis so special was that not only was he pretty good in pass coverage, and only pretty good, but when he took on an offensive lineman, the offensive lineman lost. Many cases. Like, you want to talk about an old school run thumper from 2005, Ray Lewis was an absolute animal against the run, and Nick Kwiatkowski kind of played a similar game, not near Ray Lewis. You get the idea that he was violent at the point of attack and created problems in the running game. The thing I think Bears fans have forgotten is that Shaquille Leonard, formerly Darius Leonard, is violent in the run game. And if you put Darius Leonard up against a running back with a running back that's blocking with another running back behind him, Leonard will erase the block and make the play. 58, Roquan Smith, is not doing that. Roquan's getting taken out of the play by just about anybody that goes near him. And in moments where, it looks like the Oklahoma drill, Jacob, where it's Roquan, a blocker, and a ball carrier. And Roquan's losing these matchups a lot. And that worries me because while I get it, Roquan is a homegrown talent, picked number 8. We love Roquan. We aren't in, wow, look at our young player mode anymore. We're in, is he worth top tier money? And I don't think he helped the Bears tonight. I thought he was frankly kind of a problem out on the football field, and that if theoretically you had Nick Morrow paired with a thumper at will linebacker that was able to make more of a difference in the running game, sure, that guy might have been targeted more often in pass coverage, but it didn't stop Roquan from giving up a third down to I think it was Randall Cobb, who cut inside on him and got the first down anyways. So I'm not trying to sit here and say Roquan Smith sucks. I'm not trying to sit here and say Roquan doesn't fit the system. Ding, 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 ding. Alarm bells. Panic. But I will say 2 bad games in a row is not good for a guy who's betting on himself. And it's going to put the Bears in a pretty precarious position because if he loses all of his value, he won't help the team now or in the future, whatever his extension ends up being.
Yeah, and just in the grand schemes, I think you summed it up. If you have like that downhill thumper who can really play in the box, who can really approach the line of scrimmage well, and shed those blocks, stack and shed, and move guys around at the point of attack. You don't have to be like another edge rusher per se, but being able to shed blocks, and that was Roquan's issue coming out of Georgia. That's his whole career really. That's one flaw if I had to pick one, because he's had a very good year. If I had to pick one, it's block shedding. And I think that's what's preventing him from being on the same level as Fred Warner, as Shaq Leonard. And if you're the Bears, again, 2 games, it's a small sample size, but you have to consider that at some point. Is this guy on that same level is he worth paying to that extent? Because that's what he wants to be paid. He wants to be paid more than those guys. And that's well documented at this point. I don't think he's worth that. I've said over the course of the offseason that Roquan's a guy that, he's really good, even though off-ball linebacker isn't the most full position in today's NFL. He can cover very well. He's a locker room leader, and he's very athletic. So you have that going for you. And he's a blue chip, maybe not top tier, but he's top 10, maybe top 5 off blocker. That's a guy worth keeping around if you have a little extra for him. I say do it. But it's not a really inspire to the year. And I think that if it keeps the level of play up, it's going to hurt his stock. He's still going to get good money, but it's really going to hurt his case to be the highest paid linebacker in the league when, truth be told, Warner and Leonard are just on another level entirely.
Right. I mean, I can't help but feel like the worst part about this. So let's go all the way back to 2018. What is the recipe to make Roquan Smith shine? Well, if the recipe is that you need to have two guys in Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman that can both eat double blocks, that's hard to find one, let alone two. If you also need really solid edge pressure and you need really good defensive backs, and then Roquan Smith will be a very good linebacker, that to me becomes hard to hand just about a blank check to, considering that, you could use that money to pay for most of the things I just mentioned. I mean, if the Bears could have a couple more defensive linemen that were trustworthy when it comes to two gapping or even playing 1.5 gaps, I feel like their running game would have been a lot stronger against the Packers offensive line that they did not look like they were starting 3 brand new interior linemen, just like the 49ers were, Jacob. It wasn't that the Bears offensive line was getting manhandled. I mean, take a look at what the Bears did on offense. This Green Bay running game does a lot of favors to its offensive line. The Bears got theirs on the ground. The trouble was that they kept the Bears guessing just enough in the short passing game, in the play action passing game, and in the running game to where it felt, to me at least, like when, look, if the Packers only had 2 downs to convert first downs, it might have been a contest, but they had 3. So when one play didn't quite go their way, they were able to just fine make up for it, and there was no better example of this. Jacob, what did you think of the Bears giving up 2nd and 28 and that thing turning into a first down?
And so I didn't drink during this game, for the record. I will say, and I can say that now because I'm aged. So anyone coming to the comments saying, "Oh, you're 12. How are you?" But that, I'm legal, whatever. Anyway, I really wanted to, after they gave up 2nd and 28, you said it was 28, 29. It was just, I don't know, man. It was tough to watch. And I think a lot of it comes down to, the Packers receivers did a very good job of blocking on that one screen that they had to significantly pick up yardage on that, to get to that 2nd down. And the tackling just wasn't there. I think that's a theme that we saw throughout the game, whether it was the linebackers, the defensive backs for the most part. The defensive line didn't do a consistent job of stuffing gaps in the run game, and that provided opportunity for A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, 2 pretty strong backs, especially Dillon, to get up against linebackers that they're just as big as, if not bigger than, and give them a whole head of steam to work with. That's just not well for most linebackers. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily simply surprising, given where the Bears struggled, that they were giving those big of yardage. And correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it was Kyler Gordon who gave up that first down conversion on 3rd down. I could be totally off base on that. I think it was.
Might have been. I mean, it was either him or Smith. I can envision an 8-yard first down, but I mean, that's one of those where Roquan's put in a weird position, because we talk about him like he's an utter superstar in coverage, and he's very good in coverage, but even defensive backs struggle when they're matched up one-on-one on a slot receiver, and Roquan's no exception. That's a mismatch any day of the week. So I don't know, man. It's hard, because like you're talking about, I personally thought that the all 22 was a lot less kind to the rookies last week than the broadcast was, because any Bears win means everybody rules. I've been there. It's very easy to get swept up in that. This week, a lot of the missed tackles were the same two guys. Like, it wasn't necessarily did you see that? Am I fabricating this? Like, I don't feel like it was Nick Morrow and Angelo Blackson out there missing a ton of tackles. Justin Jones got his tackle off of a recovery where he sprinted upfield and made the tackle 9 yards downfield. It was a conspicuous pair of defensive backs that seemed to overrun players. I mean, hey, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, they both rule. Like, they will not be the first to miss tackles on those Green Bay running backs. Don't you get me wrong. But it's like, I'm not sitting here trying to sound the alarm bell. Again, this is a very developmental oriented year. This is okay. But am I crazy? Who else did you see that was missing tackles?
I think you summed it up. I mean, I don't think Roquan missed a ton of tackles. Again, I'll have to go back, but on first glance, it didn't seem like he missed a ton of tackles as much as he didn't fill the gap super well, and as much as he got down off the line of scrimmage. Morrow was a bit up and down. Kyler had a handful of missed tackles. I think Eddie Jackson played pretty well against the run from what I was able to see. But just in general, I think it's the secondary and the linebackers. It's past that second level where the Packers running backs were able to get into space and to consistently be able to make plays and to be able to run over smaller defenders. That's where Green Bay really shined. And that's why I think I could really see Chicago going D-line heavy in this coming offseason. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. It's literally week 2 of the 2022 season, but everyone's saying, oh, receivers, what they're going to do in round 1 next year. I wouldn't be shocked if they go defensive tackle, honestly, just because I think Justin Jones has shown this. I don't know if he's the Eberflus 3 technique that, we've seen DeForest Buckner be for him. I mean, that's such a high comparison. Buckner's a Fred, but I mean, is that someone that you're going to consistently rely on to play such a critical position? He didn't have a bad game by any means. He had 2 tackles for loss, and I want to say it was 8 tackles that he had. Like, that's for a defensive tackle, that's pretty good. But I think that in terms of consistently getting into the backfield, in terms of consistently eating up gaps near the line of scrimmage, I thought it was a little hit or miss. Not to single out Jones because, again, he got a lot of tackles. That's worth something. But I think that just the interior defensive line in general was just okay, in my opinion. And then that provided for missed tackling issues for some of their smaller defenders.
I think the hardest part about talking about this interior defensive line, Jacob, is that they aren't even paid to be okay. Like, the highest paid defensive lineman on the roster is Justin Jones, who's being paid, if memory serves, an average of $6 million per year, which is next to nothing given that Akeem Hicks just got a 1-year deal for $10 million over in Tampa Bay, and most people's best defensive tackle is either at least a second rounder, or they're being paid somewhere in the neighborhood of $13 to $18 million because interior defensive linemen rule, they're hard to find, and they make a huge difference on football games. I mean, at this rate, Jacob, look, let's ride the swing of it, right? Let's say that the Bears, last week they were going to be a 10-win team. Now they're going to be a 5-win team again. Let's say that they finish and they're in the top 6. I mean, this screams Jalen Carter if he's still there to me, not to get all the way into the draft. I mean, the Matt Eberflus defense in Indianapolis traded for one specific player. They traded for DeForest Buckner. They want that superhero 3 technique, and I don't think Justin Jones is supposed to be that. I love realistic expectations. To me, if we don't have realistic expectations, we have no rubric. And this interior defensive line, to me, they got a B. This is what I anticipate. If anything, I thought Justin Jones was a lot better than I expected out of one of the primary starters on the worst running defense in football last year in Los Angeles. So It's so weird to talk about because Jacob, I mean, do you feel like any of these guys in particular are like underperforming to your expectations, or is this just about your expectations? There's just no real investment there.
In terms of the interior defensive line, honestly, it lines up with my expectations that I had in the preseason and that I had in the offseason. And that's that they're not investing a lot of the position. Sure, there's solid depth there, but there's not the guy there. There's not a high-end starter. If anything, I don't know if there's a guy that would consistently start on most NFL teams. I think Justin Jones would for a handful of teams, Angelo Blackson, but realistically, it's a lot of high-end backups, which could be worse, but I think this is about what I expected, and it sounds like it's about what you expected from what they've invested there. I would just love to see a or a Brian Brzee at 3 technique spot next year. That's make my heart flow, but that's a discussion for another time, and probably a couple months from now, honestly. But yeah, no, I think that it's about what you expect, and you don't invest a lot at a certain position from a draft capital perspective, from a financial perspective, and it's about what you're going to get. If you get a good starter out of that group, fantastic. That's probably more than what you're expecting. So they're not setting the expectations bar super high just in terms of how much they're investing in that position. I think that's going to change going forward. But I think for this year alone, that's just probably going to be them with a little bit of fluctuation either up or down.
Right. And I mean, hey, I'll just say the obvious, Jacob. It's pretty presumptuous of me to say the name Jalen Carter because after a game like tonight, look, like we said, nobody's out yet. But there is a world where what we saw tonight is the new normal, sort of, for Justin Fields. And if it is, the Bears got to figure quarterback out. God, I don't want to talk about that. But there is something that got brought up in our stream's chat that I got to mention to you, Jacob, because there's a good player whose name we haven't mentioned. That's Jalen Johnson, who is one of the most under-targeted corners in the NFL right now. Kudos to him. But getting back to the negative, Jacob, what's going on with Darnell Mooney? How do you feel? What's happening?
Oh, man, I am just heartbroken after what's going on with Darnell Mooney right now. So I tweeted this near the end of the game, but to start his first 2 games, he has 2 receptions for 4 yards. That's it. And today, 1 catch for a loss of 4. And he was targeted once on that deep route, but I think it was Eric Stokes who was covering him there the entire way, and he was overthrown anyway, but still. I'm going to have to go back and see with the all 22 for this game specifically to see what went, because it's drier, so you can't use playing, in grass, so he's not going to run routes super well. Interested in seeing what happened because I can't definitively say, but from the looks of things, there weren't really any opportunities for Mooney, and I don't know if he wasn't the first read a handful of times. Again, it's 11 throws that Fields made, so it's super small sample size. But I think that for a guy who's, just coming off a 1,000-yard season, the guy who's supposed to be the wide receiver 1, the fact that he was completely invisible and the fact that nobody knows what happened, really, I think that's concerning in and of itself because he was a complete non-factor. It's not like they were throwing the ball to him and he couldn't. They just weren't targeting him. He just getting open. So we'll see. Stretch. I'll probably have a better answer for that with the coming days. But man, I just didn't like that. And I'll just touch briefly on Jalen Johnson here. I don't want to go too over time, but he hasn't been targeted much, and I think he's done a very good job in coverage. Been able to see. And again, a small sample size because he's not being targeted a lot. I think that's in itself a good thing because sure, he doesn't have these opportunities to make the flashy plays like the picks and as many pass breakups, but he's effectively neutralizing a receiver depending on who he's going up against. And from what I saw in spurts, he did a pretty good job of that tonight.
Right.
So we'll see. Again, I keep saying going back to the all 22, it's tough to get super educated breakdown from just the broadcast tape. You can pick some stuff up, but I think Jalen Johnson, his play from what I've seen so far has been encouraging. Not so much for Mooney though, that's for sure.
The number one question that I have with Johnson. So, okay, look, you know me, Jacob. You've been on enough podcasts. You've been interacting with me enough. You know that I have been one of the more vocal Eddie Jackson supporters that there is in the Bears world, especially as people started moving towards when are we going to cut Eddie? And it became a foregone conclusion before last week. Within all that, one thing that I kept coming to is if you are playing in a defensive back room where everybody knows that you can just throw at X or Y defensive back and you don't have to target the good one, you won't get targeted. And Eddie over the years hasn't gotten targeted an awful lot, but I have to beg the question on tonight's game in particular. If you saw what I saw, Jacob, the Packers came out with a clear game plan and they were going to target six. Like they knew that they could get six into the nickel, that when he lined up on the nickel, they could put their receivers in a bunch set so that they could confuse his release, and then they'd just about get free yardage. I mean, I wish it wasn't so easy, but you have to wonder whether Aaron didn't target Jalen Johnson because he just didn't feel like the offense had to. I mean, eventually, the defense is defending what the offense throws at them, literally. So if the offense doesn't think they have to target 33, they won't. And it doesn't seem like the Packers needed to. It's a real piecemeal way to watch a football game because I come away, you mentioned Mooney. Right now, Mooney is not exactly qualifying as a weapon. Nobody on the Bears is. I did not expect myself to be looking at. I don't know if Ryan Griffin has more receiving yards than Darnell Mooney does. I don't want to take a look at the Bears.
I think he does. Well, he had 18 yards today, so by default, he already has. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Equinemius St. Brown, definitely Dante Pettis, and Ryan Griffin all have more yards than Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, and it's hard for me to see that as anything other than intentional and deliberate by the defense. I mean, look, I have been awfully critical of a lot of the Bears' receiving weapons. Not quite as critical as our own Bill Zimmerman, but awfully critical when it comes to trying to be objective. This sucks. I'm a fan too. Like, this is one of those that we are back. Jacob, it's just dawned on me, we're back to chicken or the egg. Is it Justin Fields' fault, or is it the fact that he doesn't have any weapons? Both might be valid, and that's what really hurts here. Like, is Luke Getsy brainless? Because they're praising him with awfully verbose language. I mean, we're hearing Darnell Mooney and the rest of the offensive players come out and say, when he's a head coach, we will all know why. And then this happens. And I end up so wound up because I don't really know what I'm supposed to take away from this, Jacob. The monsoon game was fun to throw out because it's like, we made the plays when we needed to. Like, sure, we had 26 yards in an offensive first half, but that's totally the rain's fault. Just wait what happens when we're on dry land. Well, we didn't do a ton better, at least, or especially after the scripted drive. And so The good news here is that the Bears don't play the Packers every single week. The bad news is that the Packers may not be the best team in the division. I mean, the Lions look awfully feisty right now. The Vikings beat them pretty handily. The Bears are left playing the Texans, who, while they haven't won a game, I don't know, man. The Bears are in this weird territory right now where they proved to me with the 49ers game that they can win any game where you truly sleep on them. But I don't see anything on this Bears team that I can point to and say definitively that they won't lose to anybody on their schedule. The Falcons put up 25 points on the Rams. The Giants are undefeated and they haven't tied. Like, the Bears right now, I don't know what's going to happen here. Do you? Because after a 70-yard performance by the starting quarterback of the future, I'm kind of at a loss.
I have no idea. I think that's going to be really fun to watch these. I don't know, say fun as much as I say interesting, because these next comings we're going to see all right, Fields really didn't get to throw the ball a whole lot. Is this going to be a reoccurring theme this year? Is that the offense? Is that the mindset that the Bears with Justin Fields at these weapons, whatever? But I definitively say what the Bears are at this point. I feel pretty confident saying they're not Super Bowl contenders. I don't think that's a hot take by any means. I don't know if this is a middle of the road team that just had a bad game. I don't know if this is a bottom 3 team. I just don't know yet. So time will tell. Again, it's a young quarterback. It's an entirely new offense. It's a first-time head coach, new everything, complete turnover from last year. So there are going to be some growing pains, especially for a roster that's this young. But I don't know. I really don't know. I wish I could say more at this point. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. That's the mode that I'm in right now with this, is wait and see, because I can't really put together anything definitive from a long-term perspective based off of what we've seen so far.
It's really our only option. I mean, the most positive thing that we can say is something my dad always used to say to me all the time. He'd say, Robert, you're never as good nor as bad as your last game. And coming off the 49ers game, the Bears probably aren't that good every single week. Coming off this Packers game, we certainly hope that they aren't that bad. I mean, there is a world in which Fields is perfectly fine and the Bears offense is just trying to shield him from developing bad habits behind a pocket that's going to collapse because the receivers can't get open. I don't know, maybe. Feels kind of galaxy brain, but there's, like, I could see a human being attempting to do that, as misguided as it may or may not be. I don't know. Complicated time to be a Bears fan, because I don't know about you, Jacob. You probably grew up in the same Bears era I did, where I spent 4 straight years saying, oh, okay, I know I said this last year, but this year, Jay Cutler has no excuses. And if he doesn't produce this year, then I'm out on him. And then by the end of the year, there I was, making more excuses because, oh, well, okay, I know I said that, but come on, I didn't expect Alshon Jeffrey to end up with a hamstring issue, and Matt Forte didn't play like half the games. He was like half our whole offense last year, and Roberto Garza was hurt. Come on, man, what do we do? And it's like, I know, it's the Packers game. This one gets us emotional. Taking a beating in Lambeau, God near every year, is brutal. And it'll warp the mind of any Bears fan and send us all into a frenzy. But this was a rough one. This was a rough one psychologically. It was a rough one on the football field. And it feels like the only reason it was close was because of one lucky fumble and one not so lucky fumble. So we'll have to see. I mean, maybe it'll be a telling game, ironically, against Lovie Smith. So I guess Lovie will give us answers one way or another. But Jacob, what are your final thoughts on the game?
My final thoughts are that I'm out of thoughts. I am tired of losing to the Packers every single year. I am tired of getting annihilated in prime time, and I just wanted into this game expecting the Bears to win. From a random perspective, I wasn't expecting that. I would just say, if the Bears can show some, if Fields can have a good game and lose by like one possession or something like that, I'd be okay with that. I'd honestly be happy with that in the grand scheme of things. But I'm not there. I'm not there because we saw so little from Justin Fields. We saw so little from, on both sides of the ball. There are honestly more questions than answers at this point. And I don't like that because I'm a big fan of like having that certainty, having that stability. And I'm an impatient person. I don't like waiting very long. Unfortunately for me, I'm a Bears fan, so it's kind of a double-edged sword there where I kind of did this to myself, and I had family to blame for inheriting Bears fandom onto me. But I don't know, man. It's just I can't put together too many long-term conclusions. I'm not going to say Justin Fields isn't the guy. I'm not going to say Luke Getsy's not a good player right away. The early signs, Nate, there are flashes, but they're not great. I'm really patient with Fields especially because I still think he can be a star in this league. Will he be? I don't know. I think he certainly can be, though. So time will tell. I'm just looking forward to these next couple weeks because, again, like you said, you're not as good or bad as your last game. I'm hoping that the Bears aren't as bad as they were in this game.
Eventually, I want to see that ultra star performance from Fields. Like, he's a second-year quarterback. We don't need to act like he's a rookie, but also it's not as if he's got Jamar Chase running around out there. He doesn't even have Allen Robinson. I mean, it's a bizarre time to be a fan because simultaneously we have to be realistic about what we would expect from Fields while watching him behind. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, truly, it's hard to tell. It's especially hard to tell off the broadcast tape. We just don't know anything, especially every single time Fields takes a sack. The forward pass, 3 yards across the sticks, not awesome. Can't really do that, but whatever. It happens. We'll see what happens. Like, this is going to be an interesting team to follow. Nevertheless, I think the officiating was awfully weird in this game. I did think that the touchdown ended up getting scored. I just don't think it matters, right? Because the Packers offense came out and diced up the Bears defense badly enough that I don't actually think that the game was as close as it might have appeared. Again, I'll tip my hat to David Montgomery, who I thought played like a star. I mean, if the Bears end up extending him, especially if they extend him for something relatively, I don't want to say meager, but very, let's say, amenable, like a $6 to $8 million year deal across 3 years. So like a 18 to 24 like deal average. You know what? I see it. Like, last week, he really struggled. This week, he looked like a beast. I mean, he was making guys miss at the second level like they weren't even there. And that's the kind of thing that you want out of your franchise running back, so to speak, if they exist anymore. But it'll be an interesting season to follow. Thanks so much for joining me. Jacob, what else do you have going on in the pipeline for this next week?
So this next week, honestly, just more of the same for me. I've been doing, along with Windy City Gridiron's Peter Borkowski, he and I have been doing college football weekly previews. I think that's been, a fun little thing, at least for me, filling like a little bit of that draft bite or whatever, that draft craving that I have in the back of my head at like all times, regardless of how my team's doing. So yeah, we're going to have that coming out this week. I don't know exactly what else. I mean, I'm sure over the course of the week on my Twitter, I'm going to have downs from, a data perspective, from a film perspective. I'm just going to try and see. I'm going to put myself through the torture of watching this game over again. And Robert, I know you're going to have to watch this game over again too. So at least, misery's company. So that's all I can now. We'll see the type of side to dig into. I don't really have a plan yet, but I'm interested in seeing what takes I come out with from this week.
Better things come in the future. I mean, if the Bears get styled on by Houston, that sends a message. They probably won't, though. I don't want to make it sound like that's what I think is going to happen. I mean, the Bears have some games against, next up on the rest of their schedule, they've got Houston, which should be tight, if nothing else. They've got New York, which should be another tight one. Feels like for everything that New York is doing well right now, between Saquon and the ever random Daniel Jones, they shoot themselves in the foot at least once in the same drive. They've got the Patriots coming up on their schedule, and they're hard to get a read on. They've got Dallas, who's going to be starting Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott. Hard to tell at this stage. The Bears have some games that will easily be described as winnable. They are losable too. And so Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields will get to control his own destiny, and that's all we can ask for. Until then, thanks so much for bearing down. I'll see all of you guys on Tuesday as we go to break down this tape. We'll be debuting an ever so slightly new format there that I hope is a nice compromise for everybody, so that it's, long for the people that want it to be long, short for the people that don't. But until then, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with me. And Jacob, that is the recording. Go ahead and stop your voice memo. Go ahead and email that to me, and I will stitch that up into the podcast. Anything you want to say off the air before you call it? I know you've got school tomorrow, right?
I do. I mean, I don't have class until noon, so
nice.
I can sleep in. Time's not really an issue for me right now. But...
Super senior.
Oh, God, yeah. No, I went out of my way to make sure I don't have any 8 a.m.s or whatever. Like, I do not want to do that. And I'm so I like to try and get up a little bit so I can, like go on a walk or something, or go to the gym, or get homework done or something beforehand. I don't know, but I can't wake up, at 7 as a college, like I want to take advantage of it while I still have it.
Right. I can't help but feel like this is the worst kind of football game, because they always put this thing on Sunday night, and so you don't get to cool off with like a sweet Ravens game or
Yeah.
like something fun afterwards.
Exactly.
You literally just go to bed mad, and I'm gonna go to bed mad. Like this is what is up? Like I really don't buy into curses, Jacob, but
Yeah.
what is up with the Bears and these just like stunningly bad offensive performances? Not just against the Packers, just like throughout the franchise. Like
Yeah.
Joe
Yeah.
Flacco's Jets hung 31 points on the Browns. And what I would give to score more than what? 20 on a
Yeah.
semi-consistent basis?
Yeah, and I mean, not even with like a backup quarterback, just with any like our starters,
Any quarterback.
Yeah, like just give me something. Like I don't. I'm just. This sucks. This sucks, dude. I can't put it any other way. I'm just friggin' tired out, and I'm kind of numb to it at a point, because that's life as a Bears fan. For one reason or another, something has to go wrong, but I'm gonna keep supporting this team. I'm gonna keep spending money on this godforsaken franchise, and I'm gonna have this season ticket holder flag in the back of my apartment for the rest of the year, whatever.
Oh, you don't have to be too dramatic. The true bright side is that if the Bears are tanking, they're doing it fairly well. I mean,
Yeah.
they won a game against San Fran that I legitimately like. Okay, I'll say this: it's hard to tell. I don't know what the Bears front office like wants. I would imagine that they want like to win games, but that they're comfortable losing them too. Like, I can only assume that there's some kind of paradox there, because this team just didn't look like done, and tonight it didn't play done. They played a Packers team that, Jacob, you want to know the worst part is? I don't think this Packers team's that good.
Oh,
Like,
no.
I think they destroyed us, but that they're gonna go. I mean, where are they next week? Like, let's see here. Taking a look at week 3, the Packers. Come on, they got to be playing. Did I just miss them? Oh, Packers head to Tampa. Lucky them.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't think this Packers team's that good. Not Tampa good.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I think Bakhtiari's about done, which, I mean, sucks for them. Sam sucks. He's, really good player, but I just think, with all these injury sacks, I don't think he's going to be the same ever again. So that's going to stink for them. And then Elgton Jenkins, they're going to have to pay a lot of money to, or not. And the Bears can bring him in. I don't know. He didn't even play that great. An injury. He didn't have a fantastic out game back. But I don't. Yeah, this Packers team is as good as against the Bears. I just think the Bears didn't play good football. And as a Bears fan, the best that I can hope for right now is the Packers get exposed by a team like the Bucks, or they face a team down the line like the Rams. If they do that, I don't know this year, but no, I think they do. I don't know. I could be totally off base on that. I should know this, but yeah, either way, I mean, they didn't even play as well as I think the Packers could play, and they still ran away with it. So I think that says more about the Bears than it does about the Packers being great.
Right. And I mean, admittedly, the officiating was really ticky-tack. I hate talking about officiating on the podcast because I feel like it makes me sound like any radio host, and there's plenty.
Yeah.
Like, my dad always used to say, not to quote my dad all the time, but thanks, Dad. But he always used to say, like, the goal is to be good enough that the officiating isn't the difference, right? And Kindle Vildor throwing a low block where he didn't throw a low block. He jumped around the edge of the player, but they flagged him for it anyways. That was
Yeah,
kind of weird. I
I do
felt
that.
like the Packers were particularly bad about holding tonight.
Yeah,
Like Elton Jenkins flag for holding, where you could see him holding off Travis Gibson, like
yeah,
sitting on his back as Gibson
yeah,
made the sack, and they picked the flag up.
yeah.
Like,
I didn't.
it was weird.
I mean, I'll give kudos to the Packers for one thing. Their offensive linemen know how to hold and get away with it. Either that, or it's some sort of massive conspiracy where the Packers get away with everything. They're paying the refs underneath the table. But I don't, man, it's just. And again, the Bears didn't lose because for the people who are listening to the live stream, I'm not saying Robert's not saying that.
Sure, let me pull
It's
this up
just
though.
yeah, it's just something, it just happens sometimes. The pet calls they're going their way, and that's a standard. As unfortunate as it is for us Bears fans.
Let me see. There's like a penalty differential thing that I'm looking for, because if memory serves, they're like the Packers they're one of the lowest teams in penalties called against and one of the highest teams in penalties called for almost every year. Now, I'm looking for stats that agree with me, because if they don't agree with me, then I'm not going to use them because I'm a dirty cherry picker when it comes to the Packers and officiating. But I would have sworn I've seen the charts where it's like I think it's like first downs generated by penalty or something like that, and the Packers are almost always like way in the plus. And I don't know what the deal is. I'm not gonna go tinfoil and be like, "Oh, Jacob, it's a conspiracy." But nights like tonight are awfully weird, where you're like, "That's an obvious hold." Like that's a hold that's called on any other team, but the Packers and their dadgum hug technique apparently made the referees say that like you got to put the guy through a WWE armbar or it's not getting called.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the only way to put it is they're really good at getting away with stuff and not getting caught. So listen, I gotta head out. But I sent the email your way. It's
Yes,
a map. Yeah, it's a massive. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
You bet. Have a great one, Jacob. Thanks so much for jumping on.
No, of course. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
You bet. Catch you soon.
Bye.
Well, folks, it's just us. Akusai, I'm pretty sure you attempted to send something, but you didn't. So take a look and see. Did you shoot it to me through like Discord or something? Because there are options here. But let's see. I don't know. What a weird game, guys. Like, weird because it was really bad. I mean, the worst part about a game like that is that it's easy to overreact. Oh, the tweet. Did you send it in did you send it in the chat? Maybe I don't see it in no, I didn't. But let's see anyways. Adamola, I'm convinced that they picked up the flag because they saw the sack and didn't want to call it. Like, I think that they would have flagged him, but the player got what he wanted, so they were like, who cares? But one thing that doesn't help anything, just to call a spade, is that it felt like week 1, 2020 or 2019 was sort of when Trubisky started to fade, and that was obviously in Lambeau, and this was an early season game in Lambeau in which the Bears got the pants pulled down, and so that obviously doesn't help. Let's see. I heard the there it is, Akusai. Yes, so it is this right here, where defense harmed by penalties, the Packers are in the least, and offense benefited by penalties, the Packers are in the most. This is normal. And so this is what I'm accustomed to whenever I look at penalty related charts, and I don't really care where the Bears sit on this. It's more that when the Packers are so consistent, like either they're just one of the best coach teams in the NFL, or they aren't. and they catch a lot of breaks. But I'm just looking at the data and drawing conclusions from there. As far as the rest of things, let's see. Yeah, let me see. A Damola. That's it. That's because I shorten it, isn't it? But I can go with Damola. Sure. I'm not trying to. I don't want to embarrass you. But so in 2018, John, I mean, like just pulling that up, not 18, it was 19. But like if we go Bears at Packers 2019, I'm pretty sure that Nagy, who I am not about to stand for, that game was awful, got critiqued because he passed it too much. Trubisky had 45 attempts in that game. So the 11 attempt thing that we're talking about here, like if memory serves, the criticism there was we didn't run the ball at all and we put the quarterback in no position to succeed. Probably valid, like within that. Like I know that I was very, very head on Nagy. I mean, he was effectively the first coach that I know I really like learned with. That gave me a soft spot for him, was that like that was the offense that I was digging into first. And so fundamentally anything that I thought was like new and exciting, I thought was like new and exciting. And it didn't really work that way. But it's, let me see, Steve, it could be. But it'll be interesting to see what happens next. I know I keep saying that, but like, what do you do in this case? Like the Bears have now in back-to-back weeks called more than 65% run plays, which cannot be. Like maybe they're just waiting around to play the Texans. Maybe. I doubt it. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, maybe the Bears are trying to shield Fields. Hey Case, how you doing? You got anything to say? I don't see you enough or all that often enough, so might as well give you a chance to discuss, to talk. But yeah, they're like Joe. They're gonna need to draft absolutely huge, without a doubt. The wide receiver free agent class is not good. They might have to trade for something, but that seems unlikely. I don't know what's gonna happen with Roquan. I think Roquan's losing a lot of value by the game, because if you've got a will linebacker on a team that's just getting road graded and your primary linebacker looks terrible, not great. Like, it's not going to help anything. And so I don't know what the answer is. The Bears need more at receiver. Like, I hate the phrase getting it done, but Darnell Mooney is not getting it done. He's not a one-man receiver room, as much as I would have liked it. I'm mad because if there was a world where the Bears could have swung Roquan in a second for DK Metcalf, I would be laughing right now, but I'm not. Because that was just not possible, and it was completely dreaming. But instead, we have a receiver room where like Darnell Mooney seems really good at taking advantage of open space. But for all the talk that I know I talked myself into in the offseason of like, oh, Fields and Mooney, they're like spending all this time together. They're completely getting to know each other. This is gonna be great. Like 2 receptions for 4 yards, one of which was a loss of 3, kind of speaks for itself. There is no piece of the game plan there. And Joe, you know, if letting okay, so the Robinson one's weird because I don't think there was any way he was coming back. I think that it's easy to call that a misstep, but that's like saying, I don't know. I just don't know if that was like a choice. I think Robinson was, I'm kind of where Akusai was. Robinson was never coming back here. Never. And so I would more easily, like I would be quicker to blame them for not signing a DJ Chark type or honestly, like a Christian Kirk type than I would be for not bringing Allen Robinson back, if that makes sense. But it's not like their options were easy. They didn't want to trade for Debo. I think trading for Cooper would have been a slam dunk. I said that at the time, John. That just made way too much sense to me. Cowboys were looking to offload. Bears had a lot of cap space. He's exactly the kind of player that you want to pair with Mooney. Ended up getting traded for a 5th-round pick. Dadgummit. I have to think that Ryan Poles was just slamming his fist down on the table thinking, you've got to be kidding me. That was it? Like, I was sitting here, or I got schooled, basically. Like, I think there was a lot of people in the NFL that were waiting for Cooper to get cut. And then he didn't get cut. but your guess is as good as mine at this point. Like, I mean, that's the other thing, Demola. Like, Davis Mills is out there. Okay, this one really breaks my heart, but I got to do it because we're trying to be objective here. Let's see. Texans. Stats. I can't type today. So we go Houston Texans players stats. Look, I could care less about volume. Volume is not that important. I know that. But Davis Mills got 38 attempts and he threw for 177 yards. And it's like, whoa. I mean, I don't know what Davis Mills did to earn 38 attempts, but apparently he's done it and Fields didn't. Like, maybe they think that Fields is a better runner or something. I don't know, but it's just bizarre watching this game in particular, like mentally going back, because with this vague Johns tweet out there that like Fields missed on a touchdown and a really horrible game in Lambeau Field. I mean, what's the conclusion you're supposed to draw? Like, hey, at the very least, we've got two games that tell very, very different stories. Where against San Francisco, I legitimately believe that the Bears really only won the game because they happened to have somebody. Oh, give me a second. I really only think the Bears won the game because they had somebody like Justin Fields at quarterback. I think that the quickness that it took to get out there and create the Pettis touchdown, that's exactly the kind of thing that you need in your offense if you're going to break loose against San Francisco. And then the touchdowns that came after that were largely, I mean, they weren't all Fields, but the 3rd and 2 run call was a good one. Fields stapled the ball to Equanimeous St. Brown. There was a lot to be outrageously positive about. In this game, there's a lot to be outrageously negative about. I mean, there's just nothing to be positive about tonight. And as the worst part is that because Fields didn't have a bunch of attempts, we have to over-scrutinize over a bunch of dumb stuff. Like, I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to analyze exactly where I thought... Justin Fields was trying to throw the ball when he threw it to Darnell Mooney, and if there was any other way to make that throw easier. I mean, like you said at Kusai, he had a fumbled snap, he had a separate fumble, he had 3 sacks in the game, and just about nothing that like went particularly well. This was awful. Like, okay, so San Francisco, just to use a stupid example, and I don't want to go down this road, right? But San Francisco, yes, I'm still there. Google. San Francisco, Trevor Siemian gets destroyed. Green Bay, I think Trevor Siemian puts together a much more normal-looking offense. I don't think that Trevor Siemian pops off, but I also don't think that Trevor Siemian only ends up with 70 yards. And I look at people, or I see people that are out there and they're talking about how Fields has like 2 rushing touchdowns. And it's like, that's neat. But if he can't play quarterback, then what? I mean, that we're in a similar problem, not the same, but a similar problem or a hole to where Mitch was. And I agree with you, John. Like, I think Green Bay runs a lot of complex coverage and it does slow reads down for rookies, but that's where you gotta hope that like Fields isn't a rookie, right? I mean, at what point are you like, do we say, okay, you're just a quarterback now and you're going to get graded like a quarterback? I'm being this hard on Roquan Smith. How hard am I allowed to be on Fields? And I hear you. Like, I'm the guy who likes Nick Foles. Like, I'm pretty forgiving with my quarterbacks. I'll tell you, you guys have seen it, right? Like, I'll tell you when I think a quarterback is making a mistake. But usually if you ask me my opinion about a quarterback, I don't think most quarterbacks are like bad, because quarterback's really hard. The trouble is that in this game, there was a lot of stuff that I feel like if 2 of the sacks were Fields' fault, and if the interception was Fields' fault and also a sweet play, but also like Fields' fault, Fields' mistakes just stack up. And Case, do you really want to know the time of possession difference? Because it was crazy. Did you watch the game by chance, Case? Yeah, Akusai, I know. Like, The interception barely matters. 100% agree. It's just okay. Let me put it this way, Kusai. In garbage time, Mitch Trubisky took a game against the Saints in which he didn't have 100 yards and doubled his yardage with a sweet 99-yard passing drive. That's very normal, right? But in garbage time lately, it feels like Fields presses, throws a pick, and garbage time is over. And that's not to say that, like, oh, how you play in garbage time matters, but can't we get the free sacks? That's fair, Kusai. True. I mean, Joe, I hear you. It's bizarre. It's just so weird. This whole season's weird. There aren't like watching these guys in action. It is hard for me to say that this is. Let's put it this way. Right now, today, this could be this could be inflammatory. I'm not trying to be. But right now today, it is hard for me to spot the difference between the 2017 receivers and the 2022 receivers. Like, that's the Kendall Wright, Dontrell Inman, Josh Bellamy year. Like, they're bad. And so we'll just have to see. Like Mooney having fundamentally no catches, that is heartbreaking because while they're very good defenses, like, don't get me wrong, yikes, man, like nothing. And let's see, censored. Did anyone actually think the Bears would win this game? You didn't. I thought for some reason I was just riding high on it. Like, I thought that half the Packers that played wouldn't play, if not more. Like, I thought that Lazard wasn't going to play. I thought Jenkins wasn't going to play. I thought there was no way Runyon was going to clear concussion protocol, and pop, all of them did. I know. I should be better than this. But whenever the Packers come out in week 1 and they look awful, I don't know why I believe it, but I do every time. And then Rodgers plays the Bears and summons all his superpowers, and I'm sad again. So it's my fault. Just know that whenever the Bears start winning, I develop this like ravenous case of like fan rabies, and just like I just buy in. But so then to get to other questions, I'm pissed. I am pissed that I can make the excuse for Fields that his receivers are unacceptable. I agree, John. I wish that we had hard answers one way or another. I don't know. That's the worst part about a game like this, is that, like we said a bunch throughout the podcast, you sit there muttering the phrase, I don't know. And so it's bizarre because I want firmer answers on whether Fields is the dude or not. And I'm with you. Come on, Chi-Town. Like, the beauty of it is, if I can be really honest with you, is that I consider myself, I feel like I'm more of just like a normal media guy, I guess, but before the All-22 comes out, and then I can actually do analysis. Like, this was 7-Eleven. I don't know. But yeah, it's weird. Talking about this game was one of those that, like, I thought that the Packers offense would struggle more, and it didn't. So that's on me for buying into our defensive line's success against a San Fran front that is horrible. Because like I said, front as an offensive line. Come on, Chi-Town. I am kind of confused with Eberflus's intentions too. I would like to understand why they're making his life so hard. Basically, like, I don't know if they're just trying to get value out of Kyler Gordon. I don't know if they're trying to expose Kyler Gordon to a whole lot of things, but this seems like stuff that you would do in a practice game. And unless the Bears are literally playing the season out, like every single one of these games is practice games, that's weird to me. It's like the rotation with Tevin Jenkins and Lucas Patrick 2 weeks in a row. What's up with that? Like, are we really like trying to work them in? I don't know. And you're right, Akusai. We don't have nickels. You theoretically might be able to. Nah, you can't play Kendall Vildor there. He's never practiced. But yeah, John, if they're playing practice games, like, throw the ball more. AGM, I don't disagree. I think that there was some Kool-Aid drinking that I was like, oh, maybe they're catching the Packers at the right time. But if I could be honest, I always think they're going to. Somehow I con myself into thinking the Bears are going to beat the Packers once a year. And it's a disease. I cannot think I am the only one that suffers from it. But that's okay. Like, let's see. It's going to be interesting, Censored, to see what happens on the L-22. I didn't think the line was that bad. Like, the first sack, Fields kind of ran himself into, which I don't blame him for. He was trying to, what's the word? Like, he was trying to extend the play. But, let's see. Fields averaged 10 yards per completion and 6.3 yards per attempt. Yeah, they got airborne. But it's going to be weird watching the line. I don't know if the line was actually all that bad in my own just first viewing. Sacks suck, but I don't know if it's an openness problem. And somebody said earlier that like when receivers are open, either when receivers are open or when receivers were covered. Let me see. Yeah, no. Demola, I'm with you. Like Nagy didn't win his first Packers game, but yeah, you get the idea. Let's see. Any 1 year signings from past free agency, I think, stay with the team for another contract. Well, it's not really Pringle right now, is it? ESB right now is on a ESB's on the path to end up staying with the team. Demola, I will say that now believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is real, right? What I'm about to say. Every single Bears coach in history has beaten the Packers once in his first year, which is crazy. I mean, you think about it, and it's like, yeah, I remember these games. John Fox's team beat the Packers in Thanksgiving in a weird one. It was Trestman, whose name I've blocked out, had the Shea McClellan game. Then Matt Nagy obviously beat them in the second game in 2018 to clinch the division. So if Eberflus doesn't beat them next game, he will be the only Bears coach ever to do so. And that's weird to say. Like, you want to talk storyline, that would suck. Let's see. They ran block well, but they quit running the ball. Yes. It looked like Censored the Bears run game worked until it didn't, which suggests that we weren't throwing it deep by design. Oh, I see what you mean, Case. Yeah, that's weird. And not to mention, like you said, ESB snapped Jair. You said this earlier, and I'm just gonna parrot you. ESB snapped ESB snapped Jair Alexander on that comeback route way early on, and Mooney apparently could get just like nothing, and I don't know what's going on there. Like, I struggle to believe that Mooney can't separate on a slant or anything other than 2 screens. Like, Mooney has gotten 4 targets this season, and 2 of them have been downfield. Both of them he's been blanketed, by the way. And then 2 of them have been bubbles, and only one of those has been a positive play. So that's like, 1 for 4. You're right, Censored. Like, Mooney's missing A-Rob taking all the coverage, but even when A-Rob didn't play, he generally did better than this. It is a little stunning what's going on. I don't know, Steven, because you talk about how, like, it's a serious indictment against Ryan Poles. I think Ryan Poles, like, if he could have, I feel like Ryan Poles would have hit the sim season button and gone to 2023. I don't get the impression that Ryan Poles is trying to win this year, which hurts. Yeah, Demola, they really couldn't have milked it any harder. Let's see, the win last week is why everybody's so disheartened. You're 100% right, Joe. Had the 49ers just slapped us, I would have been much more ready for this game, which is the problem. The rain lied to me, as I just can't be surprised about. Chi-Town, JF1 definitely, as an issue. Was there somebody open that he shouldn't have thrown at, or that he should have thrown at? I can't tell you because the dadgum All-22 isn't out. Probably, though. It feels like, and exactly like you're saying, AGM, it feels like if this is a season about Fields progressing, how is he supposed to progress when there's a real offensive game plan that involves Fields throwing it 11 times. This is insane. I do feel like the Bears are hilariously predictable on second down, and I don't know why. I mean, it's bizarre to me when you look at these Bears team, and I'm gonna have to go back and look. But through 2 games, I'm pretty sure the only second down that they didn't run on was a flea flicker, and it was wide open. I mean, wide open. And so it's not to say they should run more flea flickers. It's more to say, goodness gracious, we can't look at a 2nd and 20 that got converted this week and a 2nd and 11 that got converted last week as like the rationale for why we're handing the ball off on second and God knows what. Second and I don't care. Like, why? Why? What does that mean for your quarterback? Like, not everything comes back to the quarterback. And it always sounds like that in Chicago because we are brutal to our quarterbacks. Like, if the quarterback makes a mistake, like, so help me God, we will destroy the quarterback. But it's really weird. Like, I don't know what's up with the constant second and down runs. Is this some weird attempt to not have Fields develop bad habits? Heck, I don't know. Come on, Chi-Town, like on Tuesday? You bet. I mean, we got to watch. We've got to like watch the All-22 so that we can break it down. Joe, if we do lose to the Texans or the Giants, I think it's very possible we're going to lose to one. I don't think we'll lose to both. I don't know. I mean, who did the Texans tie? The Texans did put 20 points on the board against somebody, but these are those games that make you feel like the Colts. Good Lord, the Colts look bad. So maybe that's my answer. But Texans looked real bad against the Broncos today. And then, yeah, it was the Colts. Thank you, everybody. Let's see. Oh, sorry, come on. I was going through and not getting quite enough. Let's see. Why was Gordon playing Will linebacker? He wasn't. He was playing nickel, and he was just standing where the Will normally stands because the chances are he was covering the tight end or standing over a slot receiver that was right in the neighborhood, and they might have been guessing run, so he might have shifted over a couple steps. It's honestly when they condense the set, the Will linebacker and the nickel can look pretty similar. And you're probably right, Chi-Town, like seeing plays with 2 linebackers. So are you assuming when I see 2 linebackers, I'm seeing a Mike and I'm seeing a Will. And are you talking about the Sam? Like in this case, would you mean Gordon would be playing in the Sam spot? Or are you assuming that it would be like Gordon, a Mike, and a Sam at that point? You tell me what kind of like what you're thinking. Own Hussein, we did. It sucks. Like that's something we talked about on the podcast, but Jacob hopped off a little while ago. Yes. Okay. Gordon, Mike, say you get the idea. Then we're on the same page. But I think he was just in the box because as a nickel corner, he was covering. I don't know whether it'd be. He's probably not covering the running back, but like 2 linebackers. Yeah, 2 linebackers is going to mean they're in nickel. So you would expect Gordon to be there in that scenario. Did you really see like Gordon and Vildor switching? When you say switching, do you mean like switching to outside, or do you mean Vildor switching inside? Because I know he switches to outside, and that's extremely hard. Steven, I wish we could stop the Jenkins-Patrick rotation. John, I'm gonna need to listen to the presser. I bet he was frustrated. Fields has done nothing but wear his like emotions on his sleeve and answer fairly honestly. And if he was frustrated, I wouldn't blame him because today was embarrassing. And I think anybody with a brain knows that because in the NFL, you have to pass. And with 11 passing plays, not good. Let's see, one play we're overlooking. I don't think anybody's overlooking, personally, I don't think anybody's overlooking the Kmet drop. I think at this point, a lot of Bears fans are numb to it. Like, maybe that's just how I feel. But Kmet dropping a throw that hits him in the chest on a stick route, not surprising. Like, that's not something that I don't think anybody's unused to. The Niners guy that came in, Vlad the Impaler. Yeah, the Niners sure did. What did you think of Trey Lance getting hurt? Because that was yikes. Like, just the whole situation. But then, hey, Jimmy came in and the offense looked awesome until about the second half. But they'll figure it out. Does Kmet have a yard this season? He doesn't. And then, yeah, I agree, AGM, that the 49ers made Trey run the ball too much. I kind of feel like they got what they were looking for. I don't know if that's literally what they were looking for, because that's kind of ridiculous. But it was seeing Trey get hurt like that, and then Jimmy come right in, almost felt like part of a plan. I mean, I don't know, just sort of like a play stupid games, win stupid prizes if you're going to run the quarterback all that much. Like, let's see, Roquan's definitely not going to get over 20 million a year if he can't stop the run. Case that is really interesting. Chris Collinsworth saying the Bears basically only practice for a short period of time, but they go hard the whole time. It's going to be weird. Pat, I struggle. So that word talent is the problem, isn't it? I would tell you that I don't think Mac Jones is outrageously talented. Another guy I don't think is like crazy to me. Talent looks like Kyler Murray. Talent looks like, I don't want to say Justin Fields, because today is definitely not a banner day for Justin Fields, but talent looks like Patrick Mahomes. Talent looks like Lamar Jackson. To me, there is a refined quarterbacking technique that somebody like Mac Jones has, or that Joe Burrow has. Though Joe Burrow's got plenty of talent, but he doesn't have the like oozing athletic ability of some of these guys. But he'll take his drop, he'll set his feet, he'll rip the ball, and he'll get it to where it needs to be on time. And that's what I think Fields is missing. Like, as of right now, Fields leaves me entirely unconvinced as a passer. And I don't know what that means, because it's going to be really interesting to see, like, how he grows. Because exactly like Dudesky says here, like, Fields actually wouldn't be the first to bounce back after an awful second year. He would be the second. and so, like, are you gambling everything on Josh Allen? Another one might be Tua, depending on how you look at it. Like, if you think Tua was awful, then was like, what is what he's doing now changing your mind? I thought that play he had at the end of the first half was sick. Or not the first half, sorry, it was the end of the game. Like, stepping up in the pocket, navigating a rough one, firing a dart to Jalen Waddle, and somehow managing to get two receivers like well over 185 yards. And gee, you're right. Like, the guys that I'm mentioning have years in their respective systems, except not Tua. Like, Tua's got crazy weaponry, but he's actually learned the system the same time that Justin Fields did. Mike McDaniel got hired this year. So it's not that foreign for Fields to be expected to make more plays than 70 yards. I mean, let's see, there's other stuff but yeah, Packers weeks always sucks for sure. Let's see, thoughts on Matthew Adams. Matthew Adams, like the linebacker. Let me see here. I think Matt Adams is kind of meh. I don't know. The Bears are in a tough spot when it comes to linebackers, because linebackers are not easy to find. I mean, even the ones that aren't very good. The problem to me is that Roquan's not playing the run remotely physically. And I don't know. I don't want to be like, he's getting exposed, but it's not good out there. And if you need that many pieces to surround your guy with, that may not be good. Steven, I think that it's very easy right now to come to that kind of conclusion, and I'm not really there yet. Like, I was not somebody, if you remember, who was like juiced up about hiring a defensive head coach. We talked about that during the head coach search procedure, but all the same, this is not the year for that. I mean, Ryan Poles might as well have hung a neon sign that says, "We're tanking this year." And so the Bears looking like this against a good team, I expected this last week. I mean, censored, if you're still here, this was my biggest problem, is that I expected this against San Fran. And when San Fran didn't, like, whoop us like this, I bought in. and and so like it was silly of me. I agree with that, but I fully expected the Niners to just smoke us, and they did not smoke us. And so it's weird. Like looking at this whole team, I agree with you, John. 63 million dead cap is a neon sign that we're tanking. So I don't want to end up in the same spot where Steven, you're still here. I think it's going to be very easy for tons of fans all throughout the Bearsdom to immediately look at a losing team and be like, we won 6 games with bleep bleep Matt Nagy. How are we losing more games than we're winning with Matt Eberflus? I thought he was a real coach. The Bears blog told me he was a real coach. And then they rip their hair out. That's not what we're looking for here. This is an under-talented team. And when I said it and when other people said it this offseason, it was not to create an us versus the Bears mentality. It's because we're bad. Like, I mean, and I don't want to overreact to Packer week. Like, this was just rough. Like, this is what the talent looks like. And so it's going to be interesting to see what this team does against other teams at its talent level. If anything, the Bears got lucky and the schedule matches them up against it matches them up against a bunch of teams more or less at their talent level. Like, I think the Texans are at their talent level. I think they certainly should be able to compete against the Falcons. And if they lose to the Falcons, that's going to be bad. First name, last name, I sure hope not. It'll just be interesting because, like, Steven, we can't call the season a failure if they end up with like a top 5 pick and they draft really well and things turn around. That's what this whole season's for. G Davis, when I look again, there are a lot of those. I just expect to see him both ways. If I can be really honest with you, G, like I do expect to see holding calls for the Packers that I'll point out on the stream, but I can't spend the whole game enforcing my own like vision of holding because I wasn't a referee that day. Let's see, Kmet getting blown up on a goal line run. Harry, I mean, probably. Like, I definitely didn't catch that specifically. I was mostly just grousing to my mom. But if Kmet did get blown up on the goal line, he's the one who created the Herbert cutback lane on the last goal line run. So I guess you give and you take. Fans should be happy. Yeah, I agree. Like, if we are in those games showing progress and we end up with a top 5 pick in this year specifically, that's probably a win. Jay Sanders, we're not the Detroit Lions now. Like, it's not like that. To me, to end up in that Lions world, you have to have sustained years of being really, really bad. But this year, the Lions are better than us. This year, the Vikings are better than us. I think we are the first, that we are the worst team in the NFC North at this point. But it's the year to do it. Like, the Bears stuck $63 million of effectively credit card debt on their cap this season so that they could have a ton more for next year. What are they going to do about it? Heck, man, I don't know. Like, the free agency crop this next year is bad. But it always looks pretty bad going into this kind of thing. Maybe they swing a trade. Maybe they look for ancillary pieces that aren't wide receivers. I would need to look, but right now the Bears' run defense looks predictably rough. It was weird that the 49ers couldn't capitalize on it, but let's see. How much do I hate the 4th and 1 run? I thought they were just going to do the thing where they poke the ball over the goal line. Like, I was fully expecting everybody get low for a quarterback sneak and there's Fields and he pops the ball over. The shotgun stuff on 4th and 1 never makes sense to me. I feel like people overcomplicate 4th and 1 so much. Yeah. I mean, Steve, what do you mean? Like, no honesty? I'm being as honest as I can. Yeah, like a dive over or something. No, Shinetown, he's not. Like, people keep wanting to turn Fields into a power runner. He isn't. And it's fine, but it was like, I agree, censored. Like, I think he probably scored anyways, but It's a stupid play call, in my opinion. You can do a shorter handoff. You could do a pitch out. You could do a rollout. I thought Fields looked deadly on rollouts tonight. Not throwing the ball. Sorry. But like when Fields rolled out, he's quick. Like the rollout touchdown he had was awesome. Like that's exactly the kind of play call you want. And from there, it was not as easy. Bummer. AGM, I'm ready for it. Like I thought Fields threw relatively well in the run. GC, he did throw that pick, which is sad. But we don't need to like hold him to it too much. I agree, censored. The Packers definitely had a spy for most of the game. I wish the Bears could have actually used that to their advantage because a spy to me is a wasted player in coverage. Wide receivers are a huge problem. They did not look disciplined tonight with those penalties. They sure didn't. I think the Bears have to find a way to manufacture a passing game. I mean, you can't like just go to the next game and the next game and the next game with no passing attack at all. Like if you don't have any passing attack, you could just stick 9 to 10 guys in the box. Like it's crazy that they did what they did. I get it. Packers secondary really really good. Justin Jefferson obviously didn't have a problem with him. Maybe it's just the Packers. Maybe it's just a bad matchup. I hope it's just a bad matchup. But we'll see. AGM, could Tevin Jenkins become a Pro Bowler at guard? Maybe it's the Kool-Aid in me, but I actually think Tevin Jenkins profiles super well to guard. Like really, really well to guard. If his feet can follow the tenacity and the power that he has in his hands, I think that he could be really, really surprising as a guard. I don't want to say like all pro, but Pro Bowler is absolutely in the, or what's the word? Like, yes, that's what it was. Pro Bowler is absolutely in the cards. It's just a matter of how much Tevin Jenkins wants it. So we'll have to see what happens there. Let's see. Any other things? Hopefully we can see Alex replace Borum. Be careful what you wish for. We need to figure that out. Case, we do need a center. I sure hope it's Patrick. I sure hope he can snap relatively soon because Mustipher bums me out. I don't hate the guy. He's a UDFA. Like, there's an aspect of you get what you I don't know, pay for, so to speak. Like I'm exhausted of watching Mustipher. I think he's playing better in this scheme than he was, but it's nasty. Tevin, I agree with you. Like Tev does need to mature, but he could be really good at guard. I think that Vildor is somebody that like I feel to this day I feel bad for him. Like Kendall Vildor got called for 2 really ticky-tack calls. The like dive block and the illegal contact downfield, which if we're calling that, I don't know why we weren't calling more holdings. Like that seemed kind of soft to me, but whatever. I feel bad for him because a lot of people have just gotten really mad. He played outside corner, Chi-Town, but he played at like a fairly small school, and he's a relatively small guy. Like, I think Vildor has become a villain, and he's just an okay depth corner, but now he's like starting in the nickel package. I'm with you, Case. I'm also sad that we don't have Thomas Graham anymore. Greg Gabriel took a real shot at him on his way out. Maybe there's reason for that. Like I don't want to say like believe every rumor you hear, but it does. Like Graham seems like he had a lot of talent, and if his like word about work ethic means anything, maybe it matters. John, I agree with you. That's a huge part of why, like, when it comes to complaining about holding, I think if you end up spending a lot of time complaining about holding, you're basically complaining about football itself. Like, especially at the highest levels, people hold all the time. Chances are the Bears held 2 because it doesn't make any sense to expect that the Bears had to play a clean game, but the Packers got to play a dirty one. I don't think that's the case. You have to beat them at that point. Like, you just have to play through it. You have to adapt to what the rules of the day are and go, let's see. When you say Monty said they had home field advantage, what does it even mean in that case? Like, let's see. Bears can't stop the run. Yeah, I mean they had well over 200 yards, which is insane. Let's see. Case, that's hilarious. He must. I mean, I thought Graham was really skilled. I mean, super cool. And it's a bummer to see him go. That's all I got for that. Like, I wish him the best. I hope that he lives up to what I think he can, because he's kind of a stud. But he won't be a stud in navy and orange, which is, a bummer. But I guess the Bears just have some other idea. The bad call on, yeah. No, I kind of agree with that, GC. Mm-hmm. Let's see. That's hilarious, Joe. Like, it did seem, I don't know. It's weird. I feel like that normally, from the angle we had on the broadcast, he totally didn't look in. The first replay showed him in. I felt bad for the officials there, because I get that everybody wants to be like, that's the ball, but it's not conclusive to me either. I watched that replay a bunch of times, and look, I don't know if I'm just blind, but I couldn't see definitive proof that he was in, even though my brain told me he was in. It's kind of like normally challenging a spot. Like, that's how I felt Case. They didn't confirm the call. They let it stand. They just called him out the first time around. And so I agree, censored. Like, we couldn't see the football. We did not know that the ball crossed the line. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, it's over. They're not getting the call. I agree. Come on, Chi-Town. If it was called as a touchdown, it would have stood too. It just wasn't. Ralph, no doubt, Fields definitely was not good tonight. And the Bears are putting him in. I could blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, they didn't put him in position to succeed. It wasn't good. And we don't need to make it more than it was. It's way too late. I need to edit a podcast. You guys are awesome. I'll catch you on Tuesday. We'll go through the tape. Give this stream a like. Support it if you want to. Every dollar that you spend on this channel helps us to get closer to hiring an editor so that I can make more videos and spend less time editing my friends' videos. But that just helps me. See you guys Tuesday. Catch you later. Bear down. Rough one. Hopefully better soon.